It began like any other Friday evening. Joseph was a man who looked perfectly put together on the outside, successful, respected, admired, but inside, he felt a growing fear, the fear of not being enough. He worried constantly that he was failing in life, in his goals, and most of all, in his relationship. His wife, Miriam, never asked for perfection, but Joseph pressured himself anyway. He believed he needed to perform, succeed, impress, and prove he was strong. One evening, Joseph overheard a group of men talking about a supplement they were using, something sold without prescription, marketed to boost strength, energy, and confidence. They described it as powerful, even magical. Joseph did not ask questions. He did not research. He simply wanted to feel secure again, so he purchased some of the tablets from a vendor who promised guaranteed results. What he didn't know was this: the tablets contained substances that interfere with blood flow, especially around blood vessels that react strongly to increased pressure. Taken safely, under the guidance of a professional, medications of this type have uses. But taken blindly, they can destroy the body's natural balance. The night Joseph took the pills, nothing seemed unusual at first. But soon, something felt different, not the confidence he hoped for, but a strange, overwhelming heaviness in his body. His pulse quickened. His breathing felt shallow. He ignored it, thinking it was a sign the pills were working. As the hours passed, he noticed something frightening. He developed an intense, persistent erection, one that did not fade, even when his body should have returned to rest. To understand what happened next, we must pause the story briefly and look at the medical truth. A normal erection is a temporary process. Blood flows into soft tissue, pressure builds, the body maintains firmness for a short period, and then the blood drains back into circulation once stimulation ends. The key idea is this: the body is in control. It starts, maintains, and ends the process safely. But in priapism, the opposite occurs. The blood enters, and gets trapped. It cannot drain. Pressure builds. Pain replaces pleasure. Cells begin to suffocate from lack of oxygen. The tissue becomes damaged. If not reversed quickly, permanent injury can occur. Priapism is not a stronger version of a normal erection. It is a medical emergency. Back to Joseph. By midnight, he was gasping in discomfort. He could barely stand straight. He tried to distract himself. He tried to rest. But the pressure kept rising. Then came the turning point. Something inside his body gave way, a sharp internal tearing sensation, followed by sudden, alarming bleeding. Panic exploded. Miriam rushed to him, terrified. Joseph could barely speak. He lost strength, collapsed onto the floor, trembling while bleeding heavily. Miriam screamed for help. Neighbors arrived at the doorway. And then suspicion sparked like wildfire. People saw Joseph on the ground, bleeding severely. They saw Miriam standing beside him in shock. Whispers turned into accusations. Dark, violent, false accusations. Someone shouted that Miriam must have harmed her husband. Someone else swore they saw proof. Fear became anger. Anger became rage. A crowd formed, loud, aggressive, convinced that Miriam was guilty of attacking her husband. She cried out that he was sick, that he needed help, but no one listened. Mob justice rose like a storm, about to sweep her away. Just when everything was seconds from disaster, someone shouted at the crowd to stop, a neighbor who was also a nurse. She pushed through the people, examined Joseph briefly, and immediately recognized the medical signs: swelling, internal tearing, uncontrolled bleeding, and the look of priapism. She yelled for help, not revenge. The neighbors froze. Ambulance sirens filled the night air. Joseph was rushed to the hospital, drifting in and out of consciousness. Miriam rode beside him, shaking uncontrollably, terrified she would lose her husband, and terrified she might be blamed for his death. At the hospital, a team of emergency doctors acted fast. Tests confirmed the truth. Joseph had suffered priapism caused by substances in the booster pills. The prolonged pressure in his blood vessels caused rupture, leading to heavy bleeding, not from violence, but from internal vascular damage. Miriam was cleared of suspicion immediately. It took hours to stabilize him, drain trapped blood, and treat the damaged tissues. Joseph woke up in a recovery room with oxygen tubes, 4 drips, and worried eyes staring back at him, Miriam's eyes. She held his hand and cried silently. Joseph's voice shook as he spoke. He admitted why he took the pills: the pressure, the fear, the insecurity. Miriam forgave him, but she made him promise to choose honesty and safety going forward. Doctors explained calmly that medications affecting blood flow must never be used without supervision. They told Joseph and Miriam how a normal erection works: controlled, balanced, temporary, and how priapism traps blood, suffocates nerves, and destroys tissue. They also told him that he was lucky. If Miriam had not called for help, he could have lost much more than blood. He could have lost function permanently. Back home weeks later, Joseph sat quietly, replaying everything. The shame. The pain. The fear. The accusations. The truth. He realized the pills didn't boost confidence. They buried it. Confidence, he learned, comes from honesty, communication, and health, not chemicals sold in secret. Joseph spent the next months talking openly with Miriam, rebuilding trust, and regaining inner strength. He also became an advocate, warning others about the dangers of self-medication and the importance of seeking proper medical guidance. People listened. Because Joseph was living proof. He stood at the edge of disaster, and he walked back from it. He faced pain, humiliation, fear, and misunderstanding, but he survived. And instead of hiding, he chose to help. In the end, Joseph did not become strong because he avoided weakness. He became strong because he faced reality, accepted responsibility, and learned the truth. You don't have to destroy yourself trying to prove you are enough. You already are.